Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Nonprofit, a podcast and YouTube channel where we sit down with industry experts, both inside and outside the nonprofit space, to talk about how to build and scale the nonprofits of tomorrow. I'm Ted Vaughn, and today I'm a little under the weather, but I am really fired up about our guest because he's a friend of mine. He is from my community in San Diego, and I've had the privilege of watching Ryan Sisson, CEO and founder of Moniker Group, build an incredible community rooted in radical collaboration, co-creativity, working in partnership with the very community they serve. It's an amazing story, an amazing episode, and like all of our previous episodes, check them out wherever you get podcasts or right here on YouTube, and join me as we talk with industry experts about how to build and scale the innovative nonprofits of tomorrow. You have tons of people in your life who are smart. I know many of them. You're related to some of them now. What is the best piece of advice when it comes to your leadership in business? You know, the thing that you go to the most for Moniker that you've received over your years thus far?
Yeah, that's a heck of an icebreaker.
If you were a pizza topping,
yes. There we go. The best piece of advice is that I don't need to know everything in order to be a good leader. Like I don't have to have the best knowledge of every single element of our company. So that's really pushed me to surround myself with people that are specialists and really good at what they do. And it's not all about me is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Great advice. Second question, maybe a little fluffier, a little easier for you here, softball. You travel a ton. I've been with you on a lot of cool places. You go lots of places and do lots of crazy things. If you couldn't live in San Diego and you had to live if San Diego kicked you out and said, Ryan, you're out of here, where would you go? Where would you live if you weren't living here?
Man, that's a great question. The comfy answer, I probably would say Nashville. But if you're like, no, like San Diego got together with the US and they said, get out of here, you're not welcome anymore. I'd find myself in London for sure. I think I love that city. It's just something about it. There's the mystique, the romance, the like architecture, the feeling like you're in the center of the world. So pretty special city.
Yeah, man. I can't disagree. And it's such an affordable city.
Yeah, well, I come from San Diego, so, it's
good
like
point. Right. Okay, so let's start with Moniker. So I remember being with you when this kind of thing got going, but what's the why behind Moniker? And then move into the what. So start with the why that drives Moniker, and then what is the thing today?
Yeah, the why is people. It's both how do we have influence and impact over the people inside and outside the walls of our company? So what kind of impact and influence do we have with those that are working for our team? And are they ideally a better version of themselves after leaving at some point than they were coming into it? And then outside the walls is our community, the people that are, whether it be our customers and clients or whether it's just those in the neighborhood that are around our spaces, and what are we leaving them with? What are we creating for them? So it's always been around that. And it's always been around what happens if you bring a lot of great people together and put them in a room and just being able to see what happens and setting the space for that. So that for sure is our why.
You as a leader, Ryan, on a continuum of nonprofit leader to for-profit leader. And if you go to the extreme, you could just imagine what the extreme for-profit leader archetype is and what the extreme nonprofit leader archetype is, right? Mm-hmm. You can't be in the perfect middle. Where do you think you tip? Are you more of a for-profit guy or more of a nonprofit, guy? Or do you feel like you're some hybrid of both, and where do you tip?
Yeah, I think I probably would skew towards the nonprofit side a little bit, just because I feel like so much of what we do at Moniker is more heart than head. Right. So we didn't build some like kick-ass business plan that's going to 10x and I'm going to exit and do multiples and start another one. Like I built and started Moniker very intentionally with no desire to sell it at any point. I wanted to be a legacy company. I wanted to continue on and to be able to look back and measure my success based off of the fact that, one, it would still be around, and two, that we had a profound impact on people's lives. So I think I definitely skew more towards that. I love business, and I love what's possible with it. I love the sustainability of it, and I do like making money as well. It's not a bad thing. And so I definitely have plenty of the business side in it. I like the freedom, honestly, the freedom of the for-profit space, to be able to like make decisions on the fly the way you want to, whatever the market needs, versus having to go through, mission, values, boards, like all this stuff. So, there's a hybrid for sure in that, skew more towards the heart, but also love the idea that, we get to be as nimble and responsive to changing environments as we can be based off of being a for-profit company.
So you're a CEO of a for-profit company. You have a cause, mission, human heart. What does success look like? How do you measure it? What are either the qualitative or quantitative things that you're chasing? And how maybe has that evolved? Maybe it's been the same from day one. Maybe it's changed. But what is it today, and how did you get there?
I think there's no one specific metric for success. I think we have to make money. Because if we aren't financially successful, we won't exist. So, as much as we can say that, this isn't about the money, that is a rule for the game. So that has to be part of our program. So financial viability is definitely a measurement of success. I love the idea of being like a big company. And so for me, the size, the scope of our businesses and where we are and the amount of places we find ourselves, the amount of people that we employ, is a huge part about it. But that really also ties into the impact piece. I mean, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, the larger you are, the larger influence and impact you're going to have. And so we want to be intentional in that. That's both like the way a neighborhood comes to life around the space that you create, the way that you invest your resources into other people's dreams and ideas, or the hundreds or thousands of people that will come and be an employee at some point. And so I love providing jobs for people. I love having Moniker be a part of their story permanently. I'm very proud of that and what it does. And so I love to create jobs. And so size is also a measurement of success there. I think the more difficult to quantify is that kind of like positive impact piece, right? Because it can be, one, you have to first argue like what is considered a positive impact, and two, like how do you measure that? So I think, there's some things like there is some like tangible metrics around like net promoter score and like these culture surveys and things that we do that you're like, okay, like people like it here for the most part. They're willing to recommend working here to their friends. Great. But then there's the like side conversations you have with people that are like, my life is better. My life is different. My community is different. I've made different, like you get those and you can't, you're not going to put that on your website, but there's definitely plenty of those conversations where people just like, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. My life has shifted positively because of being here. And that's, for me, that's really where you get the highest ROI, is to just hear from a person, not official, just this matters.
So community is a big driver, having a community of people that are meeting their goals, that are finding and building meaningful relationship. It seems like community is a core driver, both to you, to how you've built Moniker, but also to the world around us. But it's also something changing. Why do you think community is so important? And how do you think community looks in today's crazy world? Like, what are ways that you see the idea of community shifting and changing?
I think first off, I believe that we were created to be in connection with each other. That's part of the core of who we are as people. And so the outflow of that is being in community. Like, we were never intended to be alone or isolated. That's a hard place for a person to thrive in. I also think that we've, in more recent history, have molded our lives around artificial community through social media and through just the digital tools that we have in our life now. And we're coming up empty, regardless of how many followers or how much reach we have or how many people we follow or whatever it is. And so that just reinforces for me the narrative that we were intended to be like physically connected and doing life together with other people. Whether that's, 5 or 300, that's kind of depends on your personality. It's not that, one level of community is better than the other because there's more or less, but, that's what I believe in. I think so. The best version of people doing life is when it's with other people. And so that's where it ties into the kind of broader why of Moniker, where it's like, we're here to help create space for you, to hold space for you to connect with others. We have coffee shops, we have co-working space, we have event venues. We also do interior design and we build out spaces. And so all those things are it's professional community, it's social community, it's your school community, it's someone's wedding. And so it's like your family community. So, or we're building your vision for what bringing community looks like. And so they all have that contributing factor into it. And they all have that larger purpose of like, we're here to help people be together. And I love that. Every time I walk across the street from our office here to one of our spots called Moniker General, it's a cocktail bar, coffee shop, and retail store all in one space. Traditionally it's full almost every day. And it's a large space too. It holds dozens and dozens of people. And it's just, you're watching all these interactions, these relationships taking place. And it's students studying with each other. It's someone on their first date or their 15th date. It's people bringing their business ideas to life, sitting there. It's a mentor and a mentee. Like all that stuff is all happening because we created that space for it. And it returns so much into my bank of like, hey, this is why everything that we do is worth it, and why even the hard stuff is worth continuing to pursue is because of what we have there.
Can you talk about how that same promise, I mean, you're in the business of creating space for these meaningful interactions to take place, right? You facilitate community through these intentionally cultivated, designed, well-staffed places. What's the promise or the way that brand adds value to the employees? How does that same idea of community translate from the customer to the colleague, to the person that you're working with?
Typically, the customer is going to respond to what the employee is doing, right? The employee is typically the one that, hey, how's your day? What's going on? What are you working on today? They're the ones that are walking you through the venue and helping you dream up what your wedding's going to look like, or your corporate event, or they're our community manager at Commons that's learning more about the app that you're working on or the trip that you're going on, right? So I think it starts with our team members being the authentic type of people that actually care about other people, right? So when the question is asked, one, they're compelled to ask the question. Two, when it's asked, it's not hollow. They actually do want to know how your day is going. They do want to know what you're working on. They do care about your event, and so that for me is really about bringing in genuine people that care about the best interests of others, right? Like an authentic community or a healthy community is like a healthy relationship, right? It's people looking out for the best interests of the other person. And so when you have that, if we have that from our team and they're actually looking out for the best interests of their customers or their clients, then they're going to get the best version of what that community could look like. And ideally, then it's reciprocated, right? Then the person on the other end of that has permission to respond in a way that forms a connection, and then that connection would continue to grow through additional interactions. And I think that's where you start to like see community like come to life. And so that from like the right people thing that's a culture piece, and that goes down a whole nother road of conversation. But the type of people that we have are a reflection of how we want our business to be represented, and that's super intentional. And if that's not who you are, then ultimately will not be the right fit for what we're trying to do here.
Do you attempt to cultivate community within the employees? Like, do you seek to create a space for your employees to have a sense of community, or is that more something you want them to provide for the customer. I guess I'm trying to get at, how do you as CEO provide an experience for your employees that is kind of that same branded promise idea that you want them to provide for the customer?
Yeah, we do. There's some I think practical stuff. We have a bunch of different businesses. We have 14 brands. I think we're 10 companies now. But we're all under one larger Moniker Group brand. And so early, as we started to grow and scale, that was one of the big things that we would get feedback on, is people didn't feel connected to the larger kind of core. In other words, they weren't coming together in this community of Moniker employees or Moniker leadership. And so we implemented two kind of big things. One was a monthly all hands meeting where we bring together all of our full-time and leadership staff. And it's an opportunity for me to share what's going on in our world, but it's also a chance for the managers to speak out about what they're doing. And it may not, our retail manager and our design manager it doesn't impact each other's work, but it helps them to feel connected in what we're doing. We're all together in this. We also have our annual holiday Christmas party, right? And that's really about, we do the full company, all employees, part-time, full-time, close down all our businesses and just celebrate the year that was. So that's really about celebration, looking back. And then we do an annual town hall, which is Q2-ish. And that's the same thing, as we shut everything down and we bring everyone together and we talk about what's to come, right? It's about setting vision and direction for where we're trying to go. And in that we do trainings. We do, have conversations and kind of icebreakers and things. And we force people to sit at tables that aren't with their team, right? So all the coffee, you walk in, it's just it's all the coffee people are together and all the it's all right, everyone get up, mix it up. And it just creates a space, a safe place for people to interact with each other, which is, I think, really cool. We have family dinners, which is just an open invite. Someone will host, and it's anyone wants to come, potluck, and come show up. There's individual, in team, both trainings and also hangouts. So the baristas will get together and do stuff, or the shop team will get together and do stuff. And so, I think for us, I am involved in content formation of some of the higher level stuff, like the town hall especially, and I lead the all hands, but the rest of the stuff is all very organic. And so that's really cool, because it's really just about me giving permission or signing off on a budget to do something that they want to do themselves. So those are some of the things that we do. And I think that what's cool is it's a natural, again, kind of natural outflow of the people that we have, where they're yeah, we want to gather. I want to spend time with each other. So
you're being intentional about hiring that too, right? That's got to be a pretty intentional part of your vetting process.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, our culture and our mission and our values are very out in front of the hiring process. Typically we get a lot of recommendations from people, where someone will be referred to us versus us just going out and trying to like always pick people up. And that's one of those confirmations that we're, creating the type of space that people want to be obviously a part of, and that that's one of the quantifiable elements of our impact. But I think every company has a culture, right? It's just whether or not you define it. And so we defined it a long time ago of what we stood for. And I say, fortunately, our early hires and our early team before we defined it was still a reflection of who we always intended to be. And so it kind of started there, right? And so you continually hire reflections of who you intended to be, because that's the type of people doing the hiring. And it's cool too, because I can tell you the last time I was in an interview, I haven't hired someone in years.
So you've scaled your culture through your people. So the people closest to you have either been caught or taught, hopefully both, the things that matter.
100%. I mean, our managers hire everyone underneath them, and I don't have to worry about it, because I know who that manager is, and I know that they're going to be looking out for the same thing that I would be looking out. They don't get it right 100% of the time. I mean, no one's perfect. But what's cool is because our culture is so defined and so like ingrained in who we are, that person who's not a right cultural fit typically finds himself no longer a part of the team. And a lot of the time that comes from their own choosing. They realize that this isn't where I want to be. I'm not going to get away with the things I want to get away with. I'm not going to be able to, whatever it may be, like they know it's not going to be the spot for them. So it's just a really cool like framework and guidelines for the decisions that we make, especially around our team. And then those individuals that typically come through that are also looking to be poured into. They're looking to be in community. They're looking to add value versus just like, what can I get from this or besides a paycheck?
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Moniker's incredible attention to detail. So in the nonprofit space, there's often this mindset that says spending money is bad, so everything should be done on the cheap because that shows that we're committed to putting the money where it matters, right? And then they wonder why their brand doesn't inspire confidence, why they lose traction, why they're... Moniker doesn't seem to have that mindset. I mean, you're not frivolous, but you spend money to make an experience and an environment something it should be. What's the drive behind that? What's the conviction that informs that? And how do you kind of live in the balance of that, right? Because you could go to the nth degree.
Yeah, I mean, it is a slippery slope, but the way that we typically try to look at what we're creating for others is almost the same way you would look to create space for someone that you were close to, like in your own home, right? Like if you were to say, hey, come over for dinner. I got this really great steak and this really great wine. And they come in and it's paper cups and paper plates and plastic forks that don't work. And you're sitting on the floor, right? It's like, what are you communicating to your guest? Especially if you had the ability to have nice, flatware and go sit at a really cool custom, wood table that a friend built, and you like gave them that elevated experience where they feel like they are special, like they feel like they're wanted, they feel like they're valuable. And so my argument would be, in creating this space for someone, they will recognize the intentionality and the sacrifice that was required to give them that type of experience. And they are more likely to continue to come back and have dinner with you, right? They're more likely to continue to come back and be your customer, or be your client, or be your donor, right? It's like just that level of appreciation. I mean, making them feel like you are for them. I mean, that's really hospitality. Like we call ourselves a hospitality company, and typically when you hear that, you would think, we have a bunch of restaurants or a bunch of hotels, and really, it's distilling down the virtues of hospitality and applying them to any of the outflow of actions that we do. So you can apply the virtues of hospitality to an interior design client. You could apply it to a bride, and you can apply it to a customer at the coffee shop. And really that just like, how do I help you in where you're at? Like, how do I help you be at your best in this moment? How do I help you get the most out of this? And so that's where we want to spend the extra to create the space. We want you to feel special. We want you to feel like you're cared for, you're known, you're heard, you're seen. Like that would be my desire. And I think that feeds into that, the healthy community piece, right? Like that's, again, like you walk into a space and it feels like it was made for you and the table was set for you. It elevates who you are. It instantly speaks into your heart and your mind of like, this is where I'm supposed to be and this is where I want to be. And so it doesn't give you permission to just go out and, just carte blanche, just spend everything. But there is metrics for return on the investment of creating intentionality and detail for people that are part of your world as a business or a nonprofit. It does matter.
And it strikes me that the audience that you serve, generally speaking, is probably on average a millennial, but you reach a lot of millennials and a lot of Gen Z. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'd say probably the largest would be millennial, secondary Gen Z.
Okay. So community, environments, brands, there's been a lot of shifting that I think has taken place and will continue to take place. And the audience that we're talking to, for the most part, are trying to wrestle with how to shift or reposition their brand to better engage millennials and Gen Z, especially giving a lot of the giving cliffs and other issues that are happening. What are things that you've seen that are significant or important trends in how millennials and Gen Z show up or engage, or what they seek or desire that our audience could learn from? What have you seen in your work at Moniker?
That's a good question. It's so hard because you constantly feel like you're chasing, right? And you're constantly adapting and constantly changing, but also like trying to stay core to who you are, right? It's like it's just kind of like an interesting challenge that comes with running any organization. And you got to stay true to your convictions and what you're trying to accomplish, but you also need to be able to have elements of who you are that can become a sticking point to a larger audience that's constantly adapting. I think for us, like because we create a lot of physical experiences, we try to stick with a timeless design standard, right? So it's something that sparks creativity, it sparks inspiration. It's not fad driven, and it's not like just completely void of the creativity and life that comes through design. Like it's just really trying to create this highly intentional yet neutral environment that can be both approachable from a Gen X or a boomer, and they feel like they can just get a cup of coffee and have a conversation, but also it could be the cool spot for the kids in the university that come down the street. So I think that because so much of our world is physical space oriented, that is part of it. We are navigating this on a regular basis. Like we're kind of diving into our brand of our retail experience and trying to, we started off, serving a certain demographic, and we've gotten really young. And I think we've gotten too young in our social and like our messaging and in our product orientation. And we've lost like a core part of our neighborhood from a customer base. And so we're in the process of going back and trying to come and really identify the brands and the styles and the product that can cross over, right? So, and what's interesting too is, the reason that we've gravitated towards that is because they were the ones that were spending the most. But what we found ourselves was that we weren't representing us in the way that we wanted to, regardless of the fact that that's where the money was at. So now my hope would be that as we make this adjustment, we'll find that when we adjust and skew back towards like the millennial and less Gen Z, we'll have an influx of customers from that age range and demographic that will make up for the loss. But even if we didn't, I found just like from a personal conviction of like, that's not who we are. Like that's not the larger brand of Moniker. Like this isn't properly communicating the things in which we want to do. And so even if there was some level of sacrifice financially, I wanted to make sure that we were true to who we intended to be rather than just kind of flowing into wherever the opportunity was. And I believe long-term that continued kind of course corrections when needed, that sticking to that true north of who we are will be fruitful beyond just like reacting to whatever the like fad is in the moment. But going true north can also take different routes. I think that's the part that I have to always like check myself on. It's like we could still be heading in the right direction, but there might be two different paths you take. They both get you there. Not one might be a little longer, one might be a little shorter, one might be harder, whatever it may be, but they both get you there. So being willing to stand at that intersection and go, we're going to choose left, like right will get us there too, and go that route. So having some space to be able to make those decisions without having to sacrifice what your true north actually is.
I want to talk about growth and scale, and how growth and scale, because you started in this interview by sharing you're absolutely driven by a sense of growth, and you don't want to have a boutique single environment that you cultivate and steward, right? You want to see this thing scale. Is that fair? Am I saying that right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So how does community and your ideas around community, and maybe the answer is they don't, but how might they need to change or shift if you grow and scale? or maybe you'd say they don't and you've built the model in a way, but I want to wrestle with that. And I also want to know about you and your leadership. How do you think your leadership, how you show up is different in 3 years, assuming growth and scale, versus how you showed up at the beginning or how you're showing up today?
Again, we're in the business of physical spaces. That's a lot of what we do. And so I think what's kind of cool is that each neighborhood that we're a part of can help to shape what community looks like, and what's needed within the community or in that neighborhood will help shape what we're trying to create. Right. So for example, what we don't want to do is we don't want to just go into some city and be like, hey guys, we're Moniker and we're really awesome. And we know all the things that you need for your city because we're from San Diego and California, whatever. Right. What we want to do is we want to, as we grow and scale outside of San Diego, we want to come behind local visionaries, the ones that have a vision for their neighborhood and their city and their community, and say, hey, local visionary, here's all the tools that Moniker has. Would any of these be of value for what you're trying to accomplish? And if they say yes, then let's figure out a way to do it. And if they say no, then let's go find someone who needs us. So I think from a scaling standpoint, our goal would be outside of our home, which is San Diego, and I've lived here for 40 years. You know, I'm part of the local visionary group of what we feel like this city needs and where the gaps are and all that. But we want to be sensitive to those that call these other communities home and really empower them with what we have to offer. So that's kind of how we're looking at scale and influence and community. I think the other smaller piece of that would be, we've built so many different expressions of Moniker, and we feel fairly confident in being able to try new things and being able to be that team or that company that can come in and do something new that specific community is looking for. So that's kind of how we're looking at the expansion piece and just being able to be continue to carry that impact through all those growth opportunities. As far as my leadership, we have a very hands-off management style. We are very high accountability, low control. And so I am more, my weakness is probably giving too much permission and freedom out of the gates when people are probably looking for a little bit more like of railroad tracks. And I'm like, here's a 4-lane highway, like just go, here's the keys, like have fun, and that's something I'm learning and have learned. And but I also am not the smartest person in the room, so I'm not going to pretend to be like the one that needs to control and lead everything. I say that my leadership is more that of like a bulldozer driver. Like I don't make stuff pretty, I just get stuff out of the way. Right. So like, it's just kind of like, this is where we're going, let's clear a path. And I'm just trying to get as many obstacles out of the way so that those that are really good at specific things and really passionate about specific areas, whether it be one of my business partners or whether it be our team members or managers or general manager, whatever, it's like they come behind and they really make what's beautiful and they make it work. And I'm just going to keep going and clearing a path. So my leadership style, I feel like lends to scalability well, because I don't have to be holding everything all the time. Going back to like the hiring and the staff thing. Like if I hired someone that I didn't trust, then I probably shouldn't have hired them in the first place. And so being able to bring people in where it's like, I believe that you can either do this or you can figure out how to do it and see what happens. So that's really the approach I've always had. I did Moniker on the side for 6 years, I think. So it was never even built around me as a producer from the beginning. Now that was hard. I mean, I had a full-time job, working in a digital agency and doing Moniker on the side. And, it required a lot of time and sacrifice, but it was about empowering other people that were really good at specific skills. And so because it was built that way, it's still not built on me as a producer. And the other thing of what that does is that it allows me to continue to be out front in that bulldozer rather than trying to figure out how to do the things that I'm not actually really good at. And so, it gives me freedom and autonomy from either time on a personal side or to be able to go and pursue new ideas. It does require plenty of energy going into building accountability and realizing when you have not put enough accountability out there, what happens, and figuring that out. And if a problem does reach my desk, then it's usually pretty large, and I'm carrying the burden of making sure that they being our team just doesn't realize all the hard things that are ahead or that are impacting the work that they can do. Like, I'm just kind of trying to, put a shield around them and let them focus on what they're best at, because I know that's going to be the greatest output of their time and energy.
All right, I want to close with two questions that get even more perhaps personal or poke around into the hood of you as a leader. I know you love those questions, and I know you love being super vulnerable. And
yeah, it's my favorite. I'm going to know this is a therapy session. Let's go.
Hey, man, this is free therapy, so you get what you pay for. What was the most painful transition or change that you've had to make from Moniker going from where it was to where it is today? What was the thing, the point, the maybe you had to let go of somebody, maybe you had to whatever. What's been the thing that you look back on and go, that's where I shed the most blood?
COVID. We're in California, and all of our companies make money when people are in rooms together. So there was fewer things that I could be doing that was more illegal than running a business with people inside of a building. That was just, we thought we built a company that was, recession proof, and it had enough moving parts to kind of one side to lift the other when needed. And that just crushed us. So, we went from 15 employees or 60 employees to 15 overnight. No idea what's going to happen. Don't know how to pay the bills. Don't know how to pay the rent, like all these things. And that was, there was a lot of bloodshed in that, but ultimately I'm grateful for it because we're better because of it. But also never want to do it again.
What did you do, or how did you redeem, or what did it look like in COVID to come out of it stronger? Because you could have just shut down. You could have come out of it worse. You could have, a lot of people, COVID accelerated issues they already had, and they frankly didn't recover from them. You clearly did. Why? How? What'd you do?
We looked, when we weren't serving people on the outside, we focused all our energy to the inside. And so we hunkered down on systems and operations that we had not had the capacity to focus on, getting better at budgeting and financials, getting better at systems. We implemented EOS, which is there's a book called Traction, and we implemented EOS across all 10 of our businesses. Built that common operating language for any of our companies, which is really cool. Just looked at product and all the kind of the pieces that you typically forego because you're trying to deal with whatever's in the moment, or you're trying to deal with your customers and clients only. And so that was one of them. And then the other piece too was just, I think, being intentional with the people that were there. Whatever we could put into keeping people as part of the company, we did. We had our coffee shop. We turned it into a grocery store. I kept our manager and our assistant manager, and I said, if you can sell enough coffee to pay you guys, then we're going to keep you guys. And then we stayed ourselves. Like, we stayed open. We stayed true to who we were. We pushed a little bit on the rules, and not too much to make it like a press, worthy conversation, but just enough to, I think, to show our community that we're still fighting for them and for what we stand for before all this, and that we were going to be waiting for them on the other side, and we were going to be a better version of ourselves when we did it. It's like, never waste a good crisis. It's like, you can't do anything about it, so let's figure out how to be better on the other side of it. And that's what I told the team. And I said, there are going to be opportunities, both based off of circumstances that have developed through COVID, but then also based off the fact of who we become. Those opportunities will be waiting for us on the other side of it, and they have, and we're trying to capitalize on them as much as we can. So, again, like, it was just so much pain and hardship, and just never want to go back there. Don't ever do it again. But I'm super grateful for who we are because of it.
I'm going to ask another question around leadership that may feel personal. You can skip over it if you want to. Mark and I and others we know have had the experience of hiring people that are your close friends because you like them and they're available and there's this synergy, but often they're not equipped to get you to the next level, or they're great for a season, or you overestimate. You strike me as somebody who either makes friends out of your employees, or you have friends and they often become a part of this thing with you. Has that worked out most of the time? Have there been moments where you're like, it was a blind spot, or painful times where you realize somebody that was or is a close friend was sufficient for a period, but not this period? Like how's that dynamic played out?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I've got, one of my groomsmen is my partner on Moniker Design. Another one is a partner on Moniker Hospitality. And my best man is our COO. My sister is our office manager. We have more nepotism than any one company probably should. We just hired one of my other good friend's sisters, and that's how we roll. And I'll say this to start: the highs are higher and the lows are lower, right? So you get to celebrate the victories with your people you love the most, and you have to potentially deal with some of the hardest things. Like, I mean, for example, like the idea of like, what if Moniker went under? I'm torpedoing like the careers of multiple of my favorite people. I joke that if it ever went under, I need to go. I'd be moving to London, just to start all over. But two big things that come to mind is one, the core piece of us and our operation is trust. And if that's the most important value of who I work with, then why would I not want to hire the people that I trust the most? And the second piece is imagine building the coolest house like you could ever imagine, with all the funnest things, and it's the best place to hang out, and then never inviting any of your people that you love over because you're afraid that they might get hurt at it, right? You only brought over people that you didn't really know that well because you're like, well, if they get hurt, then I don't have to worry about it. And I think that's like where we're at, is like, if I believe in what Moniker is and the place that it is to work and what we're trying to accomplish, then who am I to tell people that I most care they shouldn't be a part of it, right? It just doesn't seem like it's the right thing to do. I should be wanting to celebrate it with them on a regular basis. And yeah, it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it's really hard, but at the same time, the way you achieve, I feel like, success in this area of working with people that are your closest with is just keep an open line of communication. Just like any good friendship or any good marriage or any good relationship of any kind, it's like, if you're willing to have a conversation about it, and these individuals that I get to do work with and life with have proven over time that they're willing to have a conversation. And so up to this point, yeah, there's been plenty of times where you're frustrated or annoyed. I mean, they also know your buttons and you know theirs. Like there's that piece of it for sure. But man, we've had some really hard conversations that have led to some really beautiful things taking place. And so I love that I get to work with like literally my closest friends. I love that I get to see their families come in the office, and I get to see their kids, and we all get to raise them together. And I'm going to spend more time in the office than just about anywhere else in my entire life. So I'm all for sitting and doing that with people that I'd prefer to spend that time with. So yeah, I'm all in, and it just keeps stacking the chips, and I hope that it just becomes fruit for them.
You're a for-profit organization, but you're deeply in touch with nonprofits and with cause-driven, philanthro-capitalistic types of brands. Who in the nonprofit space inspires you? We often ask the nonprofit leaders, who in the for-profit space most inspires you, or do you most want to emulate? I'm going to flip it. As a for-profit leader, who in the nonprofit space, what brand, what leader are you most excited by or wanting to emulate?
Scott Harrison at Charity Water. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with Scott, and he is just a genuinely good person that isn't afraid to go out and create to go out and take risk, right? Like you talk about, if you've ever been at one of their charity balls, like just the experience that they put together, the technology they use, the level of detail, like you feel like you are appreciated and seen and heard as a supporter. And it's just a really cool experience that people talk about. And I think he's taken more of the approach of how do I build an innovative company that is legally a nonprofit than it is how do I build a nonprofit that's trying to be innovative. And those are two very, very different approaches. I also just love his humility. I mean, I remember seeing him at a conference a long time ago, a big leadership conference, and he was speaking at it, but he was also sitting literally in the third row taking notes, listening to other speakers. And I was like, you're just here, you're just there learning. And I'm like, that's the type of person I want to follow. It wasn't like a green room junkie and like, don't talk to me, like, oh, I got to go, like catch my flight to something else. It was like, I'm here. I'm going to sit and learn from these guys too. So I have huge respect for him as a person. But then, Charity Water, just from a creativity innovation, their photography has always been top notch. Their web design has always been top notch. They've always pushed it on the tech. And I think we've seen some just incredible fruit. I mean, he just posted a photo, I think a couple of days ago about these huge ads that went up like in the New York City subway and like a couple other like crazy places. And he's like, my team's just not afraid to ask for free advertising space still, and it's like, and so then what do? They take that space and they put like one of the most remarkable photos you've ever seen. And you're like, yes, like more of that. That one for sure, Charity Water. I just love what Scott's done and that team has done for years and years, and the impact they've had on both people that are in need, but also the impact that they've had on people that are wanting to give, and other business and nonprofit leaders. They're definitely out in front and definitely inspiring.
For more stories from experts in the industry and to learn how to take your nonprofit into the future, like this video, subscribe to our channel and podcast, and visit makehistoric.com/insights. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Ted Vaughn, and this is Future Nonprofit.